Imagine finding one of the world's most famous reporters dead in her bed. She is sitting bolt upright. She's wearing like outdoor clothes that she would never actually sleep in. Her makeup is perfectly flawlessly intact, and the explosive manuscript she promised would definitively solve the JFK assassination.
Gone.
Right. It is completely missing from her home.
But you have to understand who she was long before she was on television. Before she was an entertainer, she was a fierce, barrier-breaking reporter. I mean, she covered the Lindbergh baby kidnapping case. She covered massive mafia trials, deep-seated government corruption. Her column, The Voice of Broadway, was syndicated in over 146 newspapers.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's unpack this because she wasn't just, sitting behind a desk waiting for wire reports.
Not at all. She was known for really embedding herself in the story. When she covered those mafia trials, she wasn't just sitting in the press box. She was out in the corridors, talking to the lawyers, the fixers, the families. She had this unrivaled knack for gaining the deep trust of absolute insiders.
So she was essentially the Barbara Walters of her time, but with the gritty street instincts of, like, a noir detective.
Yeah, that is a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how her dual persona functioned as her greatest weapon.
What do you mean?
Well, being an entertainer, a familiar and smiling face on a weekly television show, it allowed her to completely disarm her sources. Yep. People let their guard down around a celebrity panelist in a way they never, ever would around a hard-boiled investigative reporter. They think they're talking to a friend from their living room TV set. That unique access made her a genuinely dangerous investigative force to anyone trying to hide the truth.
And it was exactly that unique access and fearlessness that led Kilgallen to tackle the biggest story of the century. I mean, from what I'm reading in the source material, right from the start, she was highly skeptical of the official Warren Commission report on the JFK assassination.
She certainly wasn't the only skeptic in America at that time, but she was one of the very few with the resources, the national platform, and the sheer resolve to actually dig deeper than the official press releases.
And she used those incredible connections to secure a massive coup. I mean, she got an exclusive interview with Jack Ruby.
Right.
This is the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald on live television. She gets to him during his actual trial. How does a reporter even pull that off?
By leveraging her immense fame and the trust she had built over decades in the courtroom. And according to the historical sources, during that interview, Ruby hinted heavily at a much larger conspiracy involving highly influential figures.
Wait, really?
Yeah. He essentially confirmed her suspicions that Oswald was not a lone wolf. The official narrative was basically a manufactured lid designed to keep the pot from boiling over.
It wasn't just the interview either. I mean, she actually obtained a classified copy of the Warren Commission report before it was made public. She compiled this massive dossier of notes and told friends she was on the brink of blowing the case wide open. But, and this is key, she also felt endangered and was telling people she was being followed.
Which, given the paranoid context of the Cold War era and the sheer magnitude of what she was investigating, was an entirely rational fear.
I hear that, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. I want to push back on this a little bit. Was she actually holding the smoking gun, or was she just, a savvy syndicated columnist building a sensational headline? I mean, her critical manuscript and notes mysteriously vanished, so we don't even know what she had.
That is a completely valid pushback. As consumers of history, we always have to view these claims with a critical eye. But if we look at the mechanics of power during that era, the actual contents of her notes might be entirely secondary to the perception of her actions.
Right, like it didn't actually matter if she was right.
Exactly. It mattered that she was looking. Whether she had the ultimate truth or just disconnected fragments of it, her actions threatened entrenched power structures. In the paranoid height of the Cold War, merely asking the wrong questions of the right people, especially with her massive audience, is more than enough to make you a target.
And those threats she felt, the paranoia of being followed, they were tragically validated by what happened next. She shifted from a reporter of the mystery to a victim of one. On November 8, 1965, she was found dead in her Manhattan townhouse.
Yeah, and the official ruling was an accidental overdose of alcohol and barbiturates. Case closed, right?
But the scene itself makes absolutely no logical sense. Like I mentioned at the top of the deep dive, she was sitting upright in bed, she was wearing outdoor clothes, not sleepwear, her makeup was still completely intact.
Right, and she was reading a book friends knew she'd already finished.
Exactly, and the most chilling detail, that massive dossier of notes and her critical manuscript on the JFK assassination, it mysteriously vanished. Friends insisted she didn't abuse drugs. Mark Shaw's book investigates these glaring discrepancies. So, what does this all mean? When you have a staged-looking crime scene, it immediately throws the official narrative out the window.
It does. And this connects to the bigger picture. When official investigations, like the police probe into Kilgallen's death, have such glaring holes, the damage is twofold. First, it deprives the world of a brilliant journalistic mind. But more fundamentally, it permanently fractures the public's trust in official narratives.
Yeah, you just stop believing them.
Exactly. When the establishment tells a story that clearly does not align with the physical reality of the room, the public is forced to fill in the blanks themselves.
Which brings us to the exact underlying theme connecting our sources today. While Kilgallen was a famous professional chasing the JFK truth, a few years later, an everyday citizen tried to blow the whistle on the RFK assassination.
Right, showing how the trauma of these assassinations really gripped everyone, from the elites to everyday people.
So we dive into the declassified FBI files from 1971. A woman named Lila Hurtado goes to a U.S. Marshal in Puerto Rico with a wild story. She claims her former boss, an L.A. interior decorator named William Huntington, heard a secret tape recording.
A tape allegedly made by Ronald Buck, an attorney and manager of the exclusive L.A. club, The Factory.
And the contents of this tape. Hurtado claims wealthy individuals, top military and government officials were gloating over the deaths of JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. and planning Robert F. Kennedy's assassination.
It is a staggering claim.
And it goes further. She claims Huntington actually played this tape for RFK himself, and RFK allegedly said he couldn't do anything about it until he became president.
Okay, wait. This sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller.
It really does.
An interior decorator, a private club, a secret tape played for the victim himself. Did the FBI actually take this seriously?
Well, in the climate of the 1970s, the FBI had to investigate. It wasn't about believing her, it was about liability. Evaluating a citizen's claims, no matter how outlandish they seem, is a strict matter of national security protocol. They have to run it down so they can point to a file and say, we looked into it. So, the FBI's response to Hurtado's claims reveals the actual mechanics of how the establishment processes and shuts down dissenting narratives. The files show FBI agents interviewing Ronald Buck.
And Buck flatly denies everything.
Right. He says Huntington was a close friend, but also a pathological liar, financially irresponsible, and totally non-political. He states RFK was never in his office, and no such tape existed.
And based on this single interview, the FBI concludes Hurtado is unreliable and shuts the entire investigation down.
Just like that. But at the exact same time, in June 1971, another FBI memo shows the LA District Attorney practically begging the FBI to re-examine the RFK murder weapon. There was a massive public controversy surrounding LAPD criminalist Dwayne Wolfer.
Yeah, the local DA needed an impartial federal lab to settle the public doubt.
And the FBI flat out refuses. They explicitly state they don't want to get embroiled in a local political controversy that could give Wolfer's opponents ammunition. I mean, the irony is just staggering. The FBI refuses to test actual physical ballistics to avoid bad PR, but they close an assassination conspiracy case because one guy says his interior decorator was a liar.
This raises an important question, though. It highlights how institutions prioritize self-preservation above all else. The FBI's actions demonstrate a distinct desire to avoid controversy and protect your image, rather than a commitment to definitively settling the public's doubts.
But the story doesn't end there, does it? Years later, Lila Hurtado fights back, and her response perfectly illustrates the anatomy of a deeply entrenched conspiracy mindset.
It really does. It brings our two completely different source materials crashing together.
Yeah, so in 1978, Hurtado sends a furious FOIA critique to the FBI. She lists the supposed conspirators on the tape: a Supreme Court justice, a five-star general, a Senate leader, and Texas oil magnate H.L. Hunt. She accuses the FBI of a cover-up to protect President Nixon.
She's building a comprehensive motive.
Right, and she cites the Iron Mountain Report, which is some theory about war as a social necessity, and the Eli U, a secret police network. But then, the most incredible part, Hurtado claims Huntington, the interior decorator, was Dorothy Kilgallen's client.
Really?
And that Kilgallen called Huntington the night she died, screaming, "I'm writing the biggest scoop of my life. I know who killed Jack Kennedy." Okay, wait. It's like a conspiracy theory nesting doll. She takes the very real mystery of Dorothy Kilgallen and weaves it directly into her own narrative about the secret tape.
If we synthesize the psychology behind this, it actually makes perfect sense. Think about what happens when people feel entirely powerless in the face of massive national traumas. To make sense of the chaos, they construct these sprawling, interconnected narratives.
Because the truth is just too random.
Exactly. They mix verifiable, deeply troubling facts, like Kilgallen's suspiciously staged death and her missing notes, with unproven rumors, like the secret tape, and complex theories like Iron Mountain. It's a psychological attempt to impose order on a terrifying world.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to connect this back to you, the listener. Because we are not just talking about the 60s and 70s here. In an era where we are constantly bombarded by alternative facts and internet sleuths dissecting everything online, these historical stories act as a perfect mirror.
They absolutely do. Kilgallen represents the very real, dangerous work of holding power accountable through rigorous journalism.
Yeah.
While Hurtado's FBI files show how easily fact, fiction, and fear can blur into a tangled web when institutional transparency is absent.
It's just a massive void that people fill with their own theories.
Right. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. If a brilliant, legitimate journalist like Dorothy Kilgallen and an obscure fringe theorist like Leila Hurtado both end up marginalized, dismissed, and their evidence lost by the exact same official systems, how do we, as everyday consumers of information, learn to distinguish the brave whistleblowers from the noise?